The Nevada sun blazed overhead, a relentless white eye in a sapphire sky. Danielle Caldwell squinted against the harsh light reflecting off the red sandstone formations of Red Rock Canyon. At 29, she'd grown accustomed to these weekend searches, the rhythm of them baked into her bones like the heat itself. Her hiking boots crunched against the loose gravel as she paused to take a swig from her water bottle, the lukewarm liquid doing little to combat the dry heat that seemed to suck moisture from every pore. "Danny, we should probably think about heading back," called out Marcus, one of the regular volunteers. His face was flushed red beneath his baseball cap, sweat staining the collar of his shirt. Danielle looked around at the small group. 7 people total today, down from the 15 who used to show up when the case was still fresh. 4 years had a way of wearing down hope, transforming it from a burning fire into a bed of stubborn, glowing embers. What had started as desperate searches for survivors had long since become grim expeditions looking for closure. "Yeah, you're right," she replied. Her sister, Marissa, had been 7.5 months pregnant when she and her husband, Ethan, vanished 4 years ago. "Just one last adventure," Marissa had said, before the baby arrived. Danielle pulled out her GPS device to mark their search area. The police had long since relegated the case to their cold files, but Danielle couldn't let go. Marissa was her only remaining family, their parents having been killed in a car accident 6 years prior. When they finally reached the parking lot, the group dispersed. Danielle popped her trunk, the digital clock on her phone reading 11 a.m. as she pulled it from her pocket, finally getting signal bars after hours in the canyon's communication dead zone. Her screen lit up with notifications. Her heart rate spiked when she saw they were all from Detective Raymond Chen of the Las Vegas Metropolitan Police Department. She hit callback. Chen answered on the first ring. "Danielle, thank God, I've been trying to reach you." "I'm sorry, Detective, I was out in Red Rock." "What's happened?" There was a pause. "We've had a development in your sister's case. A hiker found something this morning we believe belongs to Marissa." The water bottle slipped from Danielle's other hand, splashing across the hot asphalt. "What kind of evidence?" she managed, her voice a whisper. "I'd prefer to discuss this in person. Can you drive to the White Rock Hills Loop area? I'll send the coordinates." Her friends, Sarah and Marcus, rushed over, their faces etched with concern. "They found something," Danielle said, her voice shaking. Without hesitation, Sarah placed a hand on her shoulder. "We're coming with you." The drive to White Rock Hills was a journey into a different part of the canyon, the iconic red rocks giving way to paler, starker limestone formations. A cluster of police vehicles marked the spot. Detective Chen met her, his face grim. "The site is about a mile from here. The terrain's too rough for regular vehicles." They piled into police SUVs, the ride bumpy and uncomfortable. As they hiked the remaining distance, Chen fell into step beside her. "I want to prepare you, Danielle. The news isn't good." A temporary canopy had been erected to provide shade for an evidence collection area. A man in his mid-40s with sun-weathered skin stood near a German shepherd. He was Malcolm Brandt, the hiker who had made the discovery. "I'm so sorry," he said quietly. "Bella here," he indicated the dog, ran ahead and came back with something? Danielle's gaze dropped to the evidence table. Her breath caught. Bones. Unmistakably human, pale and weathered by exposure. "It was a radius bone," Malcolm continued gently. "From a forearm. I used to be a paramedic. I marked the spot and called 911 immediately." Detective Chen guided her closer. "After Mr. Brandt's call, we sent out our forensic team. There was a severe windstorm last night, probably the worst we've had all year. We believe it's scattered remains that had been protected until now. Danielle forced herself to look, her vision blurring with tears. But it was the next piece of evidence that made her knees buckle. A larger bone, a tibia, with surgical hardware still attached. "This is how we suspected it might be your sister," Chen said. "You mentioned in your initial report that Marissa had knee surgery." "Yes," Danielle whispered. "A skiing accident. She had pins and a plate put in." "The serial numbers on the hardware match her medical records," the detective confirmed. "We're waiting on DNA, but it's her." A broken sob escaped her lips. Sarah wrapped an arm around her, supporting her weight, but Chen wasn't finished. His expression grew more somber. "Danielle, there's more. We found additional remains, smaller bones, in a crevice in the cliff face." The implication hit her like a physical blow. The baby. Marissa's baby. The forensic anthropologist believes they're consistent with a late-term fetus, Chen continued, his professional demeanor barely masking his own discomfort. "Some bones show evidence of scavenger activity." The sobs came freely now, 4 years of desperate hope crumbling into dust. "What about Ethan?" she asked, between gulps of air. "Did you find—" "No," Chen replied. "No remains we can definitively identify as male. The search team is still working, but so far, nothing." "How can that be?" They were together. "That's one of many questions," Chen said, his tone carefully neutral. "Without evidence of Mr. Voss's remains, we have to consider all possibilities." "You think Ethan did this?" Danielle's voice rose in disbelief. "That's insane! He loved her. He was a surgeon. He saved lives. He would never—" "I understand this is difficult," Chen said calmly. "But the fact that only your sister's remains have been found, that they were concealed rather than simply lost. These are factors we can't ignore." Danielle shook her head vehemently. Neither of them were experienced hikers. The idea that he could have navigated this far into the desert, done something to her, hidden the bodies, it doesn't make sense. "People can surprise us," the detective replied. He gestured toward the cliff face where crime scene tape fluttered. The remains were found beneath that overhang, partially protected. It's possible they've been there the entire time, until last night's storm dislodged them. The journey back to the city was a blur. At the police station, a technician swabbed her cheek for a DNA sample. Then in his office, Detective Chen walked her through the original case file again. He asked about Ethan's family, their finances, any changes in behavior. "I know this is difficult to consider," he said, "but we have to look at the possibility that the missing person is responsible." "You won't find anything," Danielle said firmly, "because there's nothing to find." "I hope you're right," Chen replied. "In the meantime, be careful. This discovery is already on the news. When cold cases heat up like this, it can trigger unexpected reactions. If Ethan is alive, he might try to make contact. Or if someone else was involved, they might feel threatened." The house felt impossibly quiet. Danielle collapsed onto the sofa, the weight of everything crashing down. Her gaze fell on the family photos on the shelves. Now she was the only one left. On impulse, she opened her laptop and searched for Malcolm Brandt. His public Facebook profile was filled with hiking photos, always with his dog, Bella. One post from 3 weeks ago caught her eye, a picture of a slice of lavender honey cake from a small cafe called Desert Blooms. The mention of cake triggered a flood of memories. Marissa had been a gifted pastry chef. A store-bought gift felt inadequate for the man who'd finally given her answers. She would bake something for Malcolm. But first, she needed Marissa's recipe book, a handwritten notebook containing all her treasured creations. She knew it was at Marissa and Ethan's house. The 10-minute walk through their quiet neighborhood felt different now, each familiar landmark a small grief. The house itself sat quietly, a time capsule of a life interrupted. She used her key, the musty smell of a house too long closed up greeting her. She found the recipe book in Marissa's secret spot, a hidden cabinet behind a mirror above the bed. As she sat on the dusty sofa, flipping through the pages, a sound from outside made her freeze. A car engine, idling. She moved to the window, peering through the curtains. A dark sedan sat at the curb. 3 men emerged, approaching the house with purposeful strides. The one in front wore a distinctive brown fedora. She heard them at the front door, not knocking, but working at the lock. The metallic scratching sent adrenaline flooding through her. She needed to call for help, but had left her phone at home. Racing for the kitchen landline, her hip caught a vase on the hall table. It shattered on the hardwood floor with a deafening crash. The scratching at the lock stopped. Through the window, she saw the men backing away, returning quickly to their car. The man in the hat turned slightly, and Danielle gasped. In profile, with the way he carried himself, he looked like Ethan. The car sped away. The kitchen phone line was dead, of course. She swept up the broken porcelain, her heart racing. Who were those men? If one was Ethan, why try to break into his own house? She went back upstairs to retrieve the recipe book. Her eyes fell on a framed photo on a shelf. Ethan at a medical conference, wearing the exact same brown fedora. A chill ran down her spine. Clutching the photo and the notebook, she walked home, every shadow a threat. The moment her front door clicked shut, she called Detective Chen. "I think 3 men tried to break in," she said, the words tumbling out. "One of them? I think it might have been Ethan." After explaining about the fedora, Chen sighed. "I'll send a patrol unit to check the area, but there's not much we can do. I can't justify posting an officer there indefinitely." He reiterated his warning to be careful. Danielle opened the recipe book to Marissa's famous honey cake. She was low on eggs and out of the good vanilla Marissa always insisted on. The mundane task of grocery shopping would be calming, she told herself. The parking lot was well lit. As Danielle reached for her shopping bags, movement at the gas station across the street caught her eye. 3 men were exiting the convenience store. Her blood turned to ice when she recognized the brown fedora. She ducked down, peering over the dashboard. They stood near a black sedan, their voices carrying fragments on the night air. "Ledger has to be careful with the search." A younger man in what looked like veterinary scrubs jogged toward them, carrying a small cooler. They exchanged a few words, then all 4 climbed into the sedan. Every rational part of her brain screamed to call Chen, but a different impulse took hold. If that was Ethan, she needed to know why. Before she could second-guess herself, Danielle started her car and followed. She kept a reasonable distance as they navigated through town. On the outskirts, the traffic thinned. The sedan turned onto Highway 160, heading west into the empty desert. Her unease grew with each mile. She dropped back further, fumbling to dial Detective Chen. "You're following them!" His voice was sharp with disbelief. "Danielle, turn around right now. This is dangerous." "Okay," she said finally, realizing her foolishness. "I'm turning around." She had just completed her U-turn when she saw headlights in her rearview mirror. The black sedan had also turned and was approaching fast. "Oh, God," she breathed, dropping her phone. They saw me. Her Honda was no match for their powerful sedan. It surged forward, pulling alongside her. She caught a glimpse of the passenger, the man in the fedora, gesturing for her to pull over. She ignored him, gripping the steering wheel. The sedan swerved into her lane, forcing her toward the shoulder. She chose the sand, her car fishtailing wildly before coming to a stop. Before she could react, the sedan blocked her escape. The man in the fedora got out, a tire iron in his hand. The safety glass of her window exploded inward. Hands dragged her out, zip-tied her wrists, and stuffed a gag in her mouth. They bundled her into the sedan's back seat. "I told you boys it was her from the news," the driver, the man in the fedora, said. "I never forget a face." They blindfolded her, the journey seeming endless as they drove deeper into the desert night. When the car finally stopped, she was pulled out, and her blindfold was removed. A large, abandoned-looking warehouse materialized from the darkness. Inside, however, it blazed with fluorescent lights, a macabre, hidden world. "Welcome to our little operation," said the man in the fedora, introducing himself as Rico. They marched her down a corridor lined with rooms. In one, figures lay motionless on hospital beds, IV lines snaking from their arms. They forced her onto a bed in an empty room, strapping her wrists to the side rails. Only then did Rico remove the gag. Her scream was cut short by a casual backhand. The doors banged open, 2 guards dragged in a figure in filthy clothes. Danielle's heart stopped. It was Ethan. He was alive, thinner, his face gaunt, but alive. They forced him into surgical scrubs. He moved mechanically to a scrub sink, but when he turned and saw her on the bed, his face went white. "Danny!" The word was strangled. "Please!" she managed, her voice weak from the drug they'd injected. "Ethan, no!" He whirled on Rico. "Absolutely not! I'm not doing this. I'm not operating on my sister-in-law." Rico laughed. "Funny story. We just wanted to grab your ledger from your house for some leverage, but then this one was there, watching, and she followed us. She makes much better leverage, don't you think?" He gestured to the man in veterinary scrubs. "You're going to teach our new recruit here, Doctor. Paulson. He's a vet, but the basics are the same, right? You train him, or little Danny here becomes our next donor." Ethan's shoulders slumped in defeat. "Fine, but she doesn't get touched." A muscular guard dragged Danielle to a stark concrete cell. "Won't be long," he said with a leering grin. "Boss likes the new ones broken in proper." The door slammed shut. Alone, Danielle took stock. The drug was wearing off. Something felt odd about the bed. Her hand brushed against something under the pillow, a pen. Between the mattress and the rusty frame, she found folded sheets of paper. It was Ethan's handwriting, his wedding vows, letters to Marissa written in captivity. The click of the lock made her jump. She stuffed the papers and pen into her jeans. The guard entered, carrying leather straps and a riding crop. "Time for your breaking in session," he announced. He advanced slowly. As he reached for her, Danielle spat in his face. His amusement turned to rage. He backhanded her, sending her sprawling. As he loomed over her, his weight trapping her, her hand found the pen. She drove it deep into his left eye. His scream was inhuman. As he writhed, she lunged for the gun holstered at his hip. He grabbed her ankle, his strength terrifying despite his injury. She twisted, brought the gun around, and fired. The bullet tore through his thigh, his grip loosened. She scrambled to her feet, gun shaking in her hands. The room was soundproofed. She shot the lock on the door and ran. The corridor was empty. She heard voices and ducked into an alcove. 2 men in scrubs walked past. A stairwell. She chose up. Strong arms wrapped around her from behind. "Don't shoot!" A man's urgent whisper stopped her. "I'm a friend. Ethan sent me." He was Tom, one of the other victims. Ethan had saved his life with a secret, off-the-book surgery. "We need to move now," he said. "They're going to find that guard, and this whole place goes on lockdown." He led her through the maze to a motor pool. They drove his old truck to the security checkpoint, the guard waving them through without a second glance. They were out. At a gas station 30 miles away, Danielle called 911. "My name is Danielle Caldwell. I've been kidnapped. They're harvesting organs." Tom provided directions. The dispatcher's voice turned urgent. The response was massive. SWAT vans, patrol cars, all running dark, converged on the highway. From inside a patrol car, Danielle watched the raid unfold. For nearly 40 minutes, the sounds of combat echoed across the desert. Finally, the gunfire ceased. A long line of arrested suspects were marched out: Rico, Max, the veterinarian. But Dominic, the boss Tom had mentioned, was not among them. Then she saw him. Ethan walking slowly from the warehouse, flanked by officers. She scrambled from the car, needing to get to him. They were 10 feet apart when a man in an expensive suit approached from a separate administrative building, guns in both hands. It was Dominic Torino. He fired wildly. Ethan charged, tackling Dominic with 4 years of pure fury. They wrestled on the asphalt. Ethan got one gun, pressing it to Dominic's temple. "You killed her." Ethan's voice was raw, primal. "You killed my wife and my baby." "Do it, Doc," Dominic taunted. "I can see it in your eyes." For a long moment, Danielle thought he would. Then his shoulders slumped. "Number, I've had enough death because of you. You don't get to make me a killer, too." Officers swarmed in, restraining Dominic. Danielle rushed to Ethan as he collapsed to his knees. "That was incredibly stupid," she said, wrapping her arms around him. "And incredibly brave." As a paramedic tended to him, the full story spilled out. A gambling problem, a $300,000 debt. Dominic's men had found them on the trail that day. When he couldn't pay, they'd threatened Marissa. She'd tried to call 911. Dominic had shot her, a lesson about cooperation. They'd kept Ethan alive to work off the debt as their surgeon. "A few weeks ago on our anniversary, I dreamed about her," Ethan whispered. "She told me she was waiting for me, but I had to be a good man first. That's when I stopped." As the patrol car pulled away from the warehouse, leaving the flashing lights and chaos behind, Danielle and Ethan sat in shared grief and tentative hope. The sunrise was still hours away, but for the first time in 4 years, they were moving towards something other than darkness. Healing, however difficult and distant, might finally begin.